sauce. I'm everything on the menu, so dope that I'm breaking the news, and I ain't got nothing to prove. So you can do you, or follow along, but I'm gonna do whatever I want. I make the rules, I don't play along. I do whatever I want, and I ain't asking you if I'm right or wrong. I do whatever I want. I
Hi everybody and welcome. This stream is we are making a game section of grass. We're going to start from scratch and make a cluster file and just talk about blades and placing in the tree window itself. And I know I had some problems with my mic last week, so if you guys can't hear me or if this is not loud enough, y'all just like give a little holler now. I'll try to turn up the microphone. So let's get started. You guys feel free to ask questions in the chat as we're going. And I'm just gonna check and see. There we go. All right, I'm gonna start off with the disclaimer that I am not the grass guru. I'm definitely good at making things in SpeedTree, but as far as laying them in a game or a scene, there's just so many different ways to do that and so many different techniques for your area. So we're going to go over the basics, and people will be doing these in a very wide array. So if you disagree with my strategy, that makes sense. But I basically just want to show for beginners how the tree window works to begin with, and how we're going to start making these low poly clusters. To start off with, I've got a couple different files open, and I got a thumbs up on the mic, so that's good. And dandelions definitely count because that's all in my yard as well, and dead grass. It's winter, so I think that's okay. I wanted to mention we are going to be making this centipede grass today. I wanted to focus on a very even grass file, and the reason for that is grass packs when you're painting or you're doing something, you see a lot of low with some wispy stuff mixed in there. But I wanted to focus today on how to hide the repeat in a single pattern so you don't have a bunch of files in there. And we're just going to do your basic front lawn kind of grass today. We probably will do some more rough, weedy mixes in there. Just kind of wanted to keep it simple. Alright, I've got a file here with a couple things going on. This is a bigger file. I guess I would call this a hero grass. It might be more of your visualization folks doing this. I've got two things going on. I've got my main cluster, and I've got a little cluster on the ground that's a top-down view, which looks like this. So we're going to be making one of these in a second. And I've also got a cluster like this that's very, very simple and low poly. Now the problem with this that you can spot right off the bat is when you have this in your ground and your ground is moving up and down, you want your clusters to sit kind of below the surface there so you don't have any random floating ones. But you get this hard edge that becomes sort of a problem when you're building these. So from up here, if you were to put in enough of these, you probably wouldn't notice this hard edge. But one of the things we did in that other file was hid the bottom a little bit by having these little peacock clusters. Show you what I mean. I guess I can show you just a second. Let's see if this plays for you. This is an example of the two clusters side by side here. I pre-recorded this so my computer didn't crash with all the things going on in it. You can see very clearly that there's that hard edge on this little tiny guy there. And so that's why I am going to go ahead and make the other one with you. Okay. All right, we're going to start with the clean file. If you're a brand new SpeedTree, we'll just do that. We'll just open it up, brand new. File new, blank. And we've got this going here. We're going to actually kind of set this up like we would just be building our VFX grass. And to make the cluster file, and basically we're doing that because we want to use this little tree area here. I'm just going to go ahead and add, so you can do this a couple different ways. You can do this on a branch with a frond stuck to it, or you can add some leaf meshes. I'm just going to do a real simple one here and use the leaf mesh to start off with, and I'm going to show you the other way as well. I'm going to add a leaf, And then we're going to go ahead and add our materials folder. I have a dried leaf for the dead stuff at the bottom. This leaf had a little bit more detail on it. It was a little bit more yellow and dead, and it had a dead tip on it. We're just going to go ahead and grab that one to start with. And we're going to add, we'll just go ahead and get all of them in there just so that we have them on hand. I like to do this right from the start so that we can match our PBR as we go. Okay, so I've got those on there. The first thing we need to do is make a mesh cutout for it. That's pretty SpeedTree 101, but all of our materials are what we load into the actual geometry, and our cutouts are assigned to that material. So we go over tab. I forgot to mention that I am using SpeedTree 9 today. Everything I'm doing in this stream should be pretty applicable to SpeedTree 8 as well, so this tutorial is not a moot point. But you can definitely reuse that, and if it is SpeedTree 9 only, I'll try to mention it before we do anything too hardcore, so just so you know. Okay, we're gonna make a cutout. I'm gonna hit edit. Now on these long skinny ones, you're gonna want to zoom in. And the first thing first is I'm making a cluster, so it doesn't matter how many polygons I have. And fast would be to come in here and use tessellation, but as I'm folding and moving these little up and down points actually turn out to be not as good. And so I like to do more of a straight across grid on these. I'm going to put one in the middle so that it can be a fold point, but I'm actually going to go down and just add a crisscross. I want the fold here. I'm not getting in terribly close because it's a little skinny guy there, but I just want enough to fold these guys. And you might have to do kind of carefully. It tends to want to add little slivers in there, so if you have that, you can get a little closer in there and fix that issue. And so what I'm really looking for is all the way down just a very neat grid pattern. And this might take a second, and you'll have to bear with me as I just add little points in here and get it going. If you need to the edge, you can just mask out those extra lines, and it's kind of hard to see right now. There we go. Grab back to the points. SpeedTree has these slots over here, so you can save your LODs. We don't really need LODs on this because it's going to be our cluster file. We're going to put a point in here. Going to use the mask tool again on this side and get rid of all these extra slivers. And then we're going to zoom out and kind of see how we did. So I really want to point there as well. Sometimes you have to add one in the middle to get it to go across, and that's okay because you can have as many as you want on these. We'll just kind of go all the way down. And I feel like kind of try to go a little faster for you, so you don't just have to sit me watch put points in there, but we'll try our best. Gonna mask out those extra slivers. I'm putting a lot in there, and that's because I'm gonna twist these guys up quite a good bit. The great thing about the cluster is that if you want to make a really grumbled up kind of grass, you can do that. If you're working from a Crixel Atlas, for example, you're gonna have all these parts, and you might end up cutting out sections of the grass, and so that you have more like control, so you don't have whatever they've baked in to the normal, I guess. We'll show you a little bit of that in a minute. It's a mess. I want my pivot point down here, which is this guy, to be on the very bottom, and I want it to kind of line up with the middle of the leaf. And we should be about there. We just need to mask out the rest of these guys. It's hard to see what I'm doing here, but I'm being very careful to get all these little teeny tiny slivers, because those will kind of mess up your twist if you don't see those in there. Okay. I did a poor job, but we're gonna go ahead and just save this into all 3 slots. If I was doing this on the other side, I would set the LODs. We are going to close out of that. And I think I got a question about grass in Unreal 4. You can create the LOD 0 with more details to avoid the hard edge. Absolutely. That would be this one, that other file that I've got open, that extra detail-y one would be the LOD 0. We can definitely take away those ground ones as we LOD smaller. I think that's what we were saying. And making sure I'm not missing any messages, but we're good. We're on track. All right, now that we've got one texture in here, let's just start creating our little pile of leaves here. With that one, we're gonna go have to make cutouts for the other ones. But let's see how we did. I'm gonna drag and drop that onto the tree. If you don't want to drag and drop that, you can actually just go to skin and select the leaf in the drop down. We're gonna be using the leaves separately, so you could load in all 3 leaves into the same type, but I like the control of having them in a separate generator when I'm working on grass, and that might just be a personal preference. It's very tiny. You might notice that it's actually hard to see right now, and that's because the back side's not showing. So we're going to put 2-sided on this, and we are going to, right off the bat, I'm going to set these up just like I would a VFX grass circle. Now, if you're doing a lighting situation where you want to control which way the normal is facing and you don't want back-facing normals, you probably wouldn't want to do it this way. What you would want to do is set it up. I'm going to put these on sky-facing real fast. And put them up so you can see what we're doing. Real fast, what I was doing there, when you're working on a mesh, a leaf mesh, and it's connected straight to the tree, if you don't have sky facing on, it's actually kind of hard to use these controls down here. So the leaf controls for orientation are actually set up to where you work your way through. So you want to always check out the local orientation first before moving on to the final. But something I do very often just to make sure we're up towards the sky and then I know where the good normal is, I would face it up that way. For this, I'm putting it 0.5 up, so it's straight up. And then if we were going to spawn this, we are going to go over to the Gen tab. Right now it's not absolute, so these are just be anywhere within the tree circle generation style. And if you want to set up a cluster to where they're all facing the same direction and you've got a little bit more control over it that way, you would want to put it on interval, put it on 1 count, and increase the frequency between. And now you have a line that you can use for your clusters. So if you're going to do grass blades, excuse me, I was going to show you my file real fast. And you want to do grass blades straight on and you want to control exactly which way they're facing, that's a good way to set up that. We're going to hit save really fast. This is going to be our cluster file. So we're going to do alright, and I'm going to actually do this a little bit of a different way. Instead of having them in a row, we actually are going to use a little bit more chaos in here. I'm going to do a count of 3, and I'm going to push them in. So to the circle here, I'm going to push them in towards the center by making the last a little bit lower. And now I have a grouping. I'm going to do this exact same thing when we set up the actual file as well. It is a little bit harder. I'm working with these so small. You don't have to work so small in the cluster. Alright, what we want to do with this is immediately, I'm going to change the opacity map that I have on this to give it a tip. All I did was take this into Photoshop and draw a little black over the top, because I scanned this and cut off the top because it doesn't matter on these blade things very much. So we're going to go ahead and swap that out. I've got this one going in here that I made. Now I wanted to make this more of a mode leaf, and so you can't see very well from the tip. But what I did is we can just zoom in on that way. I made it kind of a jagged edge, and on the color map itself, I went in Photoshop as well, and I did a couple of different things. I made the tip white, and I made the ground a little bit more saturated down here. You don't need to do that because you can get that from AO, but I think it helps. We are going to actually take out the subsurface map. It's a pretty good subsurface map. We're just going to use that color map that I made again and make it a little bit more bright. Sorry, a little bit more bright, not blue, and a little bit more yellow. And now we have sort of a cut grass blade look. If I wanted, I could have probably spent a little bit more time dockering that up. But when you're this far away from it, or you're in Unreal Engine and it's going to be kind of filmy anyways, it doesn't matter that much. Just a little drop makes a difference. We are going to go ahead and add in our other leaf mesh blade. I'm going to go ahead and make cutouts for those real fast. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to just put less points in these guys, just to save some time. I've got him lined up. I've got him kind of going down the middle. This is actually our palm frond. You can find this on the Palmetto model. It's just a great dead leaf, and I use it often. You've got one of these in your installer actually, in the sample palm. It's just a little bit lower resolution than what we saw in the store. And let's go ahead and mask that guy out and save him out. And what we can do now is do that last cutout on the weird leaf. We'll call it grass leaf 2. It would have been made sense if I did that in order, but instead I loaded them in 2, 3, 1. So artists are a little chaotic, I guess. We're going to line that guy up, and same thing, just put some points in here. That should do. I like to give the end a lot more to twist and curl on, and that's awful, but we'll just get with it. We'll save that out, and now we have 3 leaves to work with. So for our leaf cluster, what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the viewport YZ. We usually do XY, but I find it's easier to set up our leaf clusters for grass anyways on the YZ. I'm going to go ahead and mix and match these a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just kind of add a little bit more in the frequency. So I've got another set coming in. It might have to be a really big number because we're working with such tiny things on the map. So if you ever boost the frequency and you're like, where are my leaves? It's because it's based on the size of the tree node that you're working in. So we're going to increase the frequency, so now we've got another set. I'm going to jumble these up a little bit by adding some random interval things in there. Position's going to help a lot. Next we want to kind of push and pull these different directions. The great thing about grass is that the textures are not going to lose too much quality if you stretch them out a little bit. So in order to make these blades different heights, we're actually going to adjust the scale numbers. So I'm adding some variance in here to make them a little bit taller. When you add a parent curve along the tree, you can also get variance right now. If I had this set up with interval, you would see one side of the circle get short and the top stay tall if you were doing it that way. Because I have it on with the sets of 3, it's going to be random. And There we go. And lately, to answer your question about store trees for V9, we will be releasing a whole set of trees for our V9 library. I still don't have a good timeline for that, but there's some really goodies coming out. So we're excited about it, and there's like a bunch of photogrammetry stuff with good juicy bases to build off of. So soon, stay tuned. If you want to stay on our Twitter, we generally put our announcement there. And let's go ahead and shake up the width as well. I'm actually not going to do that too much because I'm going to use fold a little bit. So fold is going to change our lighting, so I don't want to get too aggressive with it, but that will add some shape in there. And if I had done the cutout probably a little better, we'd see a little bit more going out in there, but because these are so tiny, the fold might not show up that much. The curl is going to give it that bent grass back and forth face. I like to bend them out. You can do one direction and then kind of use the curve to pull some pieces back straight. It's a nice way to do that. So we've got some up, some down. We're somewhat there. We want to go ahead and add a second. I'm just going to copy paste this guy on there, and this is going to be our other leaf. I wanted to be able to control the size pretty aggressively because I've got 3 very, very different sized leaf blades, so that's why I'm doing these on separate generators. If they were all the same size blade, by all means just load the texture in again. This guy is very banana-ish bright and a little bit fatter at the bottom. So what I'm going to do for him is actually make him really skinny. He's going to be kind of like our skinny mixed blade. So I'm going to do that by once again manipulating the texture so that my blades are kind of relatively the same size at the bottom. It's also super, super bright, so we want to adjust our PBR right now and go ahead and kind of mix these match a little bit. So we want it to be yellow with a little bit of a difference in there, but we don't really want it to be neon yellow. I would say add just a little bit of red so it stands out. Kind of bring down the brightness just a bit. I'm bringing down the maximum brightness, I'll help it out. And this guy, I want it to be like a nice, freshly watered, not my lawn right now. So I'm gonna see about bringing down the saturation just a little bit. Maybe making it, not down, the brightness down a little bit, but making it an actual true green. And it's looking okay. We are going to see what we look like as a cluster now. So we're going to go ahead and add our, so go to our viewport and go to the XY plane and zoom into it. Right now I'm backlit, which is kind of weird. I have found that every so often it's hard to grab the light when you're in this view. So that was me fumbling with the light there. So now that I've got this in position, I'm going to turn on the global properties. I'm going to go to all, and I'm going to turn on the screen space, window properties, wrong menu, screen safe shot frame. So we can see what our texture is going to export as. And one of the things that I don't like so far is that I've got this like sort of start spot there. So I'm going to start moving these around. This is the part where I get more into node mode editing and just put them where I want. I didn't use any of the dead pieces, and that's okay with me right now, I think. We'll just keep going from there. I'm glad you're excited about the tree package. Sorry about the wait there. We are going to put this in node mode. You'll notice the little gizmo is here. If you don't see that, you can click on any of the grass blades now. Make sure they're leaf mesh, not batch leaf. But you can move these around, and if you don't have that showing in your screen, you can push the W, E, R keys to get those to toggle, just like you would Max or Maya. And we are going to actually just kind of tilt some of these guys one way or the other. And for some reason, I'm going to go back into our regular viewport. I'm having trouble grabbing stuff. I don't know if it's me or if it's just hard to grab. So we're just gonna look at it like that and kind of tilt some of these guys. It's because Sky is on so hard. That's what it was. And I'm gonna hit save real fast. Not fast enough. I don't think that it... Okay, we got it back. Sorry about that. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and save this cluster as our cluster file again since we crashed. String cluster 1. I'm gonna replace it there. One of the things from this leaves is I just kind of want them to be a little bit from the side to side so they're not straight up and down. And I grab these main ones and actually just tweak them a little bit. I might just play around with the position a little bit. And with the orientation, I'm gonna use the right to turn them, maybe use out a little bit to switch them up, and now they look a little bit more dynamic there. All right, this one's probably gonna be a little bit too skinny, so we're gonna check that out when we get it back in there and see how we did. Alright, pretty okay. We're gonna see what this looks like. From here, we're just gonna export this out as a cluster. Before you do that, I'm gonna check the... Okay, I've got a little sliver going on here, and that is from one of the ones that's just completely sideways. I'm just having the hardest time grabbing stuff in this view. Might be something we need to check out in a bit. Looks like some of these guys are just too slippery and they're disappearing back there. And oh, we got some backs that aren't on. That was what it was. That one's not in our scene, but I'll just go ahead and turn it on so I don't forget later. There we go. I was catching up to the feed. You guys are saying words like juicy. Gross. Alright, well, let's like fix this little slivery guy here. I've got minimal polygons in there. I'm gonna use twist. This is gonna kind of pull them back around so that the face is showing. I've got it on a curve right now, so right now the bottom's not twisting and the top is, and that really helps hide that plane. There we go. Thought my computer was recovering for a second there. This is awful. We don't really want this little jagged thing going in there. I think that's because there's just not too many polygons in the cutout. Let's go ahead and go back to our cutout. This time I'm actually just going to use the tessellation just a little bit. For some reason they popped back even though that's masked. Let's see if we move that top one over and get that little extra thing going on there. Out. Let's see if that helps us out. There we go. Got a little bit more of a smoother bend there. Alright, I'm going to hit the tab button and move these guys up out of the way so there's no overlap there. I'm gonna kind of move these in. Some sort of little bug happening there with the select, and that's okay. We are in a beta build. We're gonna go to the viewport again and kind of check that out, and I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and send it to our scene. One of the things we're doing here is we have these turned all sorts of different directions, which would be slightly unkosher because some of them are turned around backwards, but we're going to be doing our lighting a little bit different in the other clusters, so it's not such a big deal. If you want to check and see what your normals are going to look like before you get out, we do have some front-facing blades, which is good, and I've got a little bit of interest in there. I think this will be okay as it is. The second thing I want to do before I send it out is make sure our beta is kind of in the same range. This one's got a little bit of clipping, so I'm actually going to bring it down just a little bit more. It's okay that it's white. The tips are actually true blacks, so I'm okay with that. We're going to make sure our subsurface matches as well. That was the subsurface check. We're going to look at our material subsurface and just check out that. And it seemed like our other blades do not have a map loaded in. And so that was a good thing to check. And we want to go ahead and load that in. We're going to grab the color leaf again, make them a little bit more yellow, maybe bring up the lightness a little bit, and try to match. So one thing that will really... you would think you would want like a lot of variety in the leaf colors, but when you're trying to make a grass that mixes well, I would say keep them very, very similar. Same thing goes for the subsurface. We're going to be killing most of the light in the bottom of our cluster once we get it on the other file, and so you could load a gradient in here if you wanted a little bit more entrance, but I think it's going to be wasted effort in this case. Subsurface amount, we're just going to use a blank amount here. So what I'm going to do is add in a 0.5, and we're going to go check our other things there. We're going to go to the subsurface amount and make sure we're kind of relatively in the same range. You can decide here if you actually want that information or if it's going to be too tiny to pick up, but that little stripe in the middle of the grass, you may or may not need it. If you're doing really skinny grass, which can get a little mippy, I recommend using a little fatter grass than you think you need. There we go. May or may not need that. We're gonna just kind of make it a little less noticeable just to kind of even it out. And I'm gonna try to get it in the same tone range as this other guy, just to make sure. Alright, and we should be good to go now. We're gonna go ahead and save it before we send it out. We're gonna hit O on the AO so that computes, and we're gonna go export material. I'm just gonna do a 2K map, and I've got our regular SpeedTree maps in here, basically all of these guys. Hit OK, and we are going to save that out real fast. I'm gonna get it into my ground cover. Alright, I got my cluster folder here within my grass folder, and we're going to give this a new name because this is going to be our stream cluster 1. Let's save it. And let's go ahead and get started on our grass file. You don't need to start a new file unless you just want to, but I like to do a save as, and this is going to be our stream grass. So we've already got this set up, so why waste time starting a new one unless you just really want to. We're gonna go back to our perspective mode. I'm gonna make sure that this actually is good grass size, and we're under the foot, so probably pretty good. Might be a little bit taller than your normal grass. We're going to bring in the cluster we just made. It should be down at the bottom. There we go. We're going to create a cutout, and we want this cutout to be extremely low poly. I guess I didn't line that up super well, but we're gonna keep going with it. One of the things you'll notice here that I probably should have done in my cluster, and we'll probably go back and correct that. I probably should have given myself more space. I want this cluster to be pretty long because I'm going to be sinking this into the ground, and you just end up needing a extra chunk down there at the bottom. So since I saw that I made a mistake, let's just go back to that real fast. I'm just going to open up the one that I had saved. We're going to grab both of these guys and just kind of take a look at it there, but we'll stretch them up a little bit. This is just part of the process for me. I export often. When you're working on grass, you probably want to have Unreal open or whatever you're putting it into, your game engine, and export often to that as well, just so you can see what you're getting. Sorry, we're going to back over here. We're just going to stretch these out way taller. And I got too much bend going on here, so I'm going to kind of back off a little bit on that curl. Let's see if I can get them up a little bit more. There we go. All right, and now I've got some space down here. That should be a little bit better. All right. Sometimes mistakes are made. Try that again. I'm gonna just export material again. Same setting, save it exactly over that old file. And we are going back to our file. And hello, late people. That's completely okay. So let's go ahead and switch. All right. The one we just brought in, it's our stream cluster. Edit that cutout again because we didn't make it. Oh, we need to refresh our material because it won't show up. So since I saved over, it should be refreshing. If it doesn't, you can go through and refresh it that way. But it should eventually catch up. All right, get that cut out. Put that down there. And you can turn on the color off if it's easier to see. I'm blind, so I guess dark grass on a black background doesn't always do it for me. And let's talk about our LODs here. For the grass, you really want to avoid popping, but you want the lowest LOD to be super, 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 super low. And I find that if you're doing like a low grass file, just having the zigzag and dropping in polygons that way is enough. And using the twist and curl rather than the fold. If you have enough, which I did in the other file that we had open there, definitely add a seam in the middle so you can fold all the way down. But otherwise, you kind of want your LEDs to go in the same direction. So we're gonna add this in as few as we possibly can do, which unfortunately for the bottom, I'm going to add that in there and put that at the tip. We want to cut it in as close as we possibly can to the grass while keeping this low poly. Ideally, I would have liked to have it in that for low, but I think I can do that by moving that up just a little bit, which means we want to mask out this last line and get that edge in there. All right, so this is going to be our low. I'm going to think ahead of time, and I'm actually going to add an anchor. I'm going to put one here. I'm putting it up because we're going to sync the cluster file. We're going to add a couple of wispies off either side of this main cluster here. Making sure there. You might end up going back and realizing that you don't need the extras. What I'm going to do from here is actually add all of my extras in the top because these are the sections that tend to help when you're bending them. So I'm going to do that one for my middle. I'm going to add one more cross section there for my high, and we will see how we did. First things first is we can swap out these. We don't want the individual blade anymore. We want stream cluster 1. Let's hide this for a second. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the back side's on. There we go. And these guys are a little close together now, and we're gonna do, just to set it up the same way, I'm gonna put a little bit of space in there. I'm gonna push them out from the first, just a little bit, and then just give them just a little bit of room there, so we've got a little circling. One of the things that we might want to do here is just take out these for a second. I'm just taking out my settings so we can do it again. Alright, when you first add these to the scene, make sure I don't have other things in there. Tell you what, we're gonna kill these because I added some node edits in there. So just to make sure we've got a blank slate, let's just do this again. For this build, I'm going to set these up on fronds instead of the leaf mesh, just so we can show you that way. Gonna do a frond in there, and we're gonna add a trunk in there. And I did that in opposite order, so we're gonna stick the trunk in there and stick the frond on the trunk. These guys are just gonna be way too big right off the bat because of our template is made for a tree. We're gonna make them really tiny and make them skinny. You're not gonna see them, so it doesn't really matter if they're skinny or not, but that works. And we're about the same size. The great thing about setting the cluster up along the frond is that you can control the width a lot better, as well as setting these up. You don't have to align these like you do the leaf mesh. So we're gonna do back to our generation style. We're gonna go interval, and our first and last is set to 0, so that's why it disappeared if you ever lose your stuff. Backing out, you can see we've got the same grid pattern we had before. Gonna scoop these in to our center here. We're going to put our material on there, and we're gonna set, I'm just gonna leave the fronds on so you can see what we're doing first. I'm gonna get them even closer together. Same thing, gonna push it up out of the center just a little bit, and then push that guy. Right off the bat, my frond is floating a little bit above my stem, so we're going to go to our boundary and push the start down to the bottom. We're also going to sink these guys a little bit. So I'm grabbing the trunk that the frond's sitting on, and I'm going to the gen tab, and we're just sinking these in the ground a little bit. Gonna have to type in the number because I couldn't get it with the wheelie. Might even make this even tinier just because they're working in little tiny numbers. And that's about right. So, my normals on here are kind of good to have on. I'm gonna turn those on. You can see that the cards are all facing different directions. So what we're gonna do is turn these so they're facing out. I'm gonna roll them a little bit. I'm gonna maybe not do the extreme thing, but just roll the bottom, the card there. And so now they're all facing different directions. And thank you, Monkey. That's great. That's good to hear. Okay, so we can see the shape of our grass. We're going to turn our fronds to spine only. Now we have our grass sections here. The first thing I kind of want to do is lean them out a little bit. So we're going to go back to our trunk, and we're going to change the start angle. I'm going to pump the start angle just out from the center so they look a little bit more like they're growing out in a cluster. I really wanted these to turn just a little bit more than they are, and I think that I'm going to have to sacrifice that bottom roll there. I'm going to go max. I want the top and the bottom to go with me so I can just get them into position where I would like them. And then we're going to use our fold, which we don't have in our, we didn't make our cutout that good. Curl. Curl is what I was going for. We want to curl these just a little bit, and I had a little bit of variance in here. I'm going to add a little bit of left-right variance, so they're doing different things. And we are so low poly right now. Second thing we want to do is that we added that anchor in there. So we're actually going to add a leaf mesh. Giant leaf mesh. And I'm going to use a texture I made earlier. So just to show you what that is, I made an additional file that was just one that came to a point with just a couple blades coming off of it. And I've got some interesting light going on in here as well. The blades are all different directions. So I've got that made already, and so I'm gonna skip over that just so we're not completely wasting time and come back to the grass. We're gonna bring that in. That one is this guy here, the spring cluster. We're gonna make a cutout for that one as well. And there we go. Yeah, the request for that real-time stuff is actually something we really want to do, especially for grass and for getting something in there. There's so many scenarios, and a lot of what I tend to be doing is making the model themselves and not in the context of their environment, and you do really need to model accordingly. So we are going through the basic streams right now, hoping that we'll eventually get a little bit more tech heavy and a little bit more final build or extreme case scenarios and stuff like that. So I was replying to, is it Monkhead? Just to make sure our bases are covered. I'm going to let these guys fold and curl in the middle here. I'm not really going to worry about these LODing as much because these are going to drop off first. So I'm going to just go ahead and make the same slot here. I would drop it down on a lower one, but I think we're going to lose that entire leaf. So I made this little kite guy, and that way it can curl across here and then fold down in the middle. And I'm getting scratchy, so I'm hitting the water. Where that happened again. Alright. This guy is going to be on here as our leaf 2. And our material is wrong material. And it's ginormous right now, so we're going to make sure it's the right size. We're going to go to our skin tab and just kind of bring down the size a little bit. And it is coming off almost perfectly where I sank it into the ground there, but you can already see that that one little addition helps it become 3D. And these are all sitting sideways across little cross hatch there. So what we're going to do with these guys is actually go to orientation, and we're just going to give them a little bit of fold and curl so they're doing different things. And we're going to see what that looks like. And a little bit of the same thing there. I'm going to use a little bit of size variance here, and I'm kind of okay with a little up-downness. Alright, and then we want to move to hiding the fact that these are just 3 little planes here hanging out. We're just super low poly still, and that's a great place to be. We're going to hit save. And we're going to do one more cluster. I'm going to just show you the open file that we had open a second ago. All I did was from the same cluster. I'm using the viewport XY plane on this one, but in the perspective camera I just made a VFX cluster basically with some short pieces. I really layered this one on. It's pretty much the exact setup we have in the other one, just more polygons in all of this. I have it sitting on a zone. You don't actually need to do that. But the zone can help break up the patterns in there. Sometimes people have trouble with the patterns that happen in the... I'll show you a neat trick real fast just because. I guess I don't need a new file. I'm just going to hide that for a second. When you're setting up along the circle and you want things to spiral and mix and match. I'm just going to do this, I'm going to demonstrate this with tubes really fast just so you can, tubes, not drunk, so you can see what I'm talking about. But say you have a lot of these guys in there, like blades of grass, and you want them to mix up, you'll notice that the patterns in SpeedTree tend to be, they lean the same way when you have it set on interval. So if I've got this going in there and I want these guys to start on different angles and turn different ways, this start roll and adding a little bit of variance in there is going to help pull these around. I don't know if you guys can see what's happening there. So I used a lot of that, and I also use a little bit of this parent curl. So when you have a blade of grass and you want it to fill in the space or a branch, these variant numbers are really great for grass because they can pull it one direction or the other. If you're using SpeedTree 8, you don't have these yet. All these are the same motions that you get from gnarl and curl. So if you're in SpeedTree 8, you're going to be adding one of these to the seams and using the direction from that. But don't be afraid to add these in here for great grass shape as well. If you were doing some dead grass at the bottom, you would want to add spine noise on there. Or draw the path if you wanted to add a little bit of a bump in there. It's a good way to do it. And then that way the frond will follow it as well. These are pointed up right now, which you would really want. You want these to be actually more like that. You can see the spiral is in there right now. To break up this right now, I'm going to catch my computer up real fast. There we go. To break this up, you would want to go to the Gen tab and actually add a little bit of randomness there, and probably a huge amount in the position. We don't really want that top part to hit right there, so we could actually clip these off and tell them not to start in the middle and do stuff like that. Hopefully that made sense and illustrated what I was trying to talk about. And just catching up on chat there. Okay, I'm gonna close this one down because we don't need it anymore. Wait, this is my same file. I just hit this. So we're gonna open that back up. We're gonna close this down. We've got a grass file here, and from the top down view, if you look at the material normals, they're a little bit wonky, and I did some things to the lighting in here before I sent it out. One of the things I did was I grabbed these fronds and I aligned them a little bit. We want the normals to be, I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to turn off just one of these so you can see. We would rather have the normals facing more up so the light hits them from down, and so what we can do from that is kind of twist these guys up. Geometry lighting. And by aligning these a little bit, we're going to push the normal up a little bit, and we're going to have more of the top light facing towards us. These are all bent different ways, so we're definitely going to get some dissimilarities in there. But that's something to check on before you send it out. Alright, let's move back to our actual file. We would have exported this out the same way. Gonna hit save. We're gonna add a leaf mesh. And we're going to bring in that material that we just looked at, which is this guy here, grass cluster down. For his cutout, we want to, let's go ahead and make him two-sided. It's catching up real fast. An English ivy wrapped around here a chunk. We definitely have one planned for the future. I'm actually doing a greenhouse with ivy growing all up and down it, so that one might be worthwhile. If you check back a couple of streams, we did a VFX version and a games version, I believe, of the Virginia Creeper, which is basically how to climb stuff around in V9. So hopefully that answers your question. We definitely got some good stuff coming up. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and check out our cutout for this one, for our top down. We want this cutout to be pretty different. We are gonna LED this one down pretty low. On the very smallest LED, I'm actually all within range here. I want the center to be in the center of this little cluster. I'm gonna put that one as my low. And then I want to make a grid. I'm actually going to let this one have the polygons. This is kind of an important piece. And I want it to be able to fold and curl. So we're gonna have it that way. I don't need everything that's going on up here now, so we can kind of bring that one in and bring that one in. There we go. Got a nice sort of helix. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna do this one as a high. I probably should have done the middle one, but I forgot to. I was streaming. We're gonna kill that one and kill that one and then save that one as the high. I kind of cut off that little sliver there. It's probably not too important. We'll save that as the middle one. Now that we've got that guy on there, we're going to choose our material, which is going to be top down. We're going to do sky facing on that, so it's popped up and our light is up that way. And for these guys, we want them real close to the center. On this one, I'm going to just do like 2, and I'm going to just leave it on absolute so they can just spawn wherever. Going to push them back in towards the center. You can see I've got 3 in there. That happens sometimes when you use this slider on absolute. 3 is actually pretty good, pretty methodical. To answer Monkhead's question about octahedral imposters, we don't have that on the works yet, but we are looking into it research-wise. We do have some really fun stuff for exporting now that was not in V8. But if you have a bunch of different options now as far as where your billboard sits. So at times on the grass, you might need it to sit a little bit farther down. The top-down view of the billboard you would want on grass, and you can choose extra faces if you want to do it that way. So that's all just extra additions. I was trying to show you exporting real fast with V9. It also has this atlasing previews. If you guys want to fit and move these around, you have got full freedom to do that now. Typically it does, I was going to add this in here at the end when we got exporting, but I jumped all over the place. But you also have, when you're thinking about how many clusters you're using per file, you might want to open up a couple different grasses and then have them all export out into one atlas. So you could do 4 and they would stack really neatly if you had 2 clusters each. If you're working from a Quixel Mega stand and you're doing the cutouts, the cutout area is going to stack in there. My computer did not like that, so we'll be right back. I swear I've not crashed in like days. Of course it does while I'm streaming. I think it's actually conjunction with having so many things open to get these running, but of course I did not save the right file. But we're gonna open our stream file back up. Sorry about that, guys. We didn't lose much. We just need to add that file back in there. So here we go. Bring top down back in. That was my fault for not hitting save, but yeah, definitely kind of experimental. It's kind of it's nice to know feedback from our users, just sort of like what they actually are using. Having studios actually tell us what they need is fantastic. It's, especially for when we focus on the creation side of it in SpeedTree more than the actual building out of the levels. Save some time there. All right, we put it back. We've got some material we gotta put back in there, and double siding needs to be back on. We're gonna hit save this time like a good person should. Save often and always. We're gonna put this sky facing again. And what we're gonna do with this is actually tilt this up and curl it so that these little blades start to look like grass parts. So we're going to curl these up and fold them up as well. Probably a little bit too extreme there. And put a little bit of vertex noise in there. And we're gonna put these into position underneath there. We're gonna go back and put that right in the center. And it's messy and overlappy, but that's kind of what we're going for. I'm gonna actually, I went past the last there, which is not really what I should be doing there. It should be more of that number. I think I'm gonna slide it out and just add another one in there and see if I can get that at a different size, or if that does anything for me. Right now, they look a little bit more, I feel like I could get a little bit more out if I added just a couple polygons in the end there so I could fold it back down. But let's just try it and see how our polygons do. But these little wispy areas up here, I think that would be nice if they could fold a little bit. That's a pretty high poly mixture that we've got going on there, but I think it might be worth it in the long run if we can get that to fold a little bit more. We're gonna save that into just a high and see if we can get a little bit more movement. One thing that they are clipping into the ground a little bit, and I think it's perfectly okay if they float just a little bit. Let's go back to our There we go. I'm just noodling that into place basically, and this one's a little too far out, I think. So you might have to fight it a little bit more than I'm doing on there. And you got an okay looking cluster. Really right now you should be able to look at this file and not see this flat pane. So we've got a couple different things going here. We could add another set of these clusters in there. I think that'd help a little bit. Or add one of the skinny clusters. To keep this fighting out. Let's look at our end file. I'm just going to show you. Our 3 here. The last thing you want to do before you send it out, I've got that tiny cluster in there. And this is the same cluster. I just plopped it on a zone so I could have a couple of these guys. The zone is basically an extra tree circle. But it creates a little island so that your grass can sit on it, and so you can mix them up that way. And I just made a little cluster. So these guys, you can move and generate these guys just like you would any other absolutes. And that's kind of sitting on there. One of the things that I did on this file is I looked at the AO, and we've got this new thing in SpeedTree 9. It's in there automatically in SpeedTree 8, but it's less controllable. But we're going to set the AO with the ground. We're going to kind of exaggerate this. So, I'm in lighting, ambient occlusion. Lost my place there. And we've got a ground value. So this is going to be a range of tones from dark to light, actually. So it gets darker on this end and lighter on that side. We want a dark value for our bottom AO, and we want the very tips of the grass to be white like a leaf, basically. I had them stretched pretty far up, and that's because they're, for the most part, underneath here. This ground distance is based on the height of this thing, so that's why having it all the way up does not make the entire thing black, basically. But I really just want to see shadowing thing. That's going to help it blend with the ground. You can do this with a mask inside Unreal where you can do textures on top. But I think it helps. I've got the brightness up pretty far on this, and I've got it contrasted a little bit, and that is just simply to get nice white light, not light, nice ambient in there. Get uncomputed it. There we go. It uncomputed while I was working on it, and the difference there. And awesome. Just catching up, just making sure I wasn't missing anything there. The next thing you want to do is check your LEDs before you send it out. We can do that on our little file if we'd like to do that, even though this one's probably needs a little bit more work before we send it out. What you're going to do is, if you don't see the slider on, you're going to go to Global Properties. You're going to go scroll down to Dynamic LED, or use the tab, turn it on, and then decide how many you want. We set it for 3. That's tends to be pretty standard. The really high resolution grass, you probably want that LED to last a little longer, so that if you were like low down in the grass, you would see it better. I find that putting it on the screen area close is a good rule of thumb to start. And so right off the bat, we're losing our main structure here. So on the zoom out, we want to see what those main structures are, which looks like it's going to be frond. And we're going to put our weight on that a little bit higher than the rest. We also want to look at what we're losing and dropping each time. So if you hit Global Properties again, we want to keep our fronds in the scene. So we're gonna max that out. We just want to keep all of them. There's only 3 of them, so it's pretty important that they all stay. We really don't want these bottom ground clusters to stick around, but they might be relatively important since they stick out to the side. So we're actually gonna see what that looks like. You can do this manually and see that right now they're dropping down. So that's the size. So we want to go back to Global Properties and change the scale to not grow on those guys so much. And just check it again and see how you did. And they're just not. So let's go ahead and keep all of our leaves and see what we get from that. This whole art form here is just sort of checking and moving back and forth and thinking through what needs to stay. Let's keep our leaves. They are dropping in polygons as they go. Let's make a couple of them drop because we still want to leave our top extra leaf here. And oh yeah, to answer the question from Monkhead, this is definitely clean, short together grass. And I'll show you an example of just like what it looks all stacked together in just a second. Yeah, we are testing this to see what stays and what doesn't. I don't really like the way that these guys are LEDing. You can click these guys and just tell it not to LED and see if that fixes the problem. Maybe don't go down on the very last one to see if that pop can come out of there. And it's not bad. Let's check it with the close and just see what we do when we're bouncing out there. Oh, and one of the things with working small is that clipping plane is going to show up. It's a real bummer sometimes when you're working with the grass. We are getting half in size. We really want to go down even farther than that. I don't think we are dropping that far because we don't have enough in there. So from this far back section, let's put it back to manual really fast and let's view it from here. Looks like our main shape is getting, we're just put the weight down on this guy on the top to make sure that it actually does go down. Let's see if those lose. And we're dropping down to 32. Let's see if we can get it even lower. I'm gonna see what that looks like if we drop down to the next level. And still got that pop in there that's really gonna show up. So we can either adjust our cutout or just live with the fact that it pops. Could also just go ahead and see if taking more of the leaves out helps us out. I would say, for the sake of running things together, just to go ahead and leave them. So that's about where we want it. We want to do one more thing before we send it out. We want to check our lighting. We're going to cut down on some of the lighting before we send it out. So I've got a lot going on in there. I'm going to turn normals are on. Okay, so we've got our frond here, and we're going to go to geometry, and we are going to point the upper light on the top of this frond up, kind of like a puffiness. And we're going to adjust that. So what that's going to do, you can see it straight back, is we want to light the top of our grass and not the bottom. You don't really want specular highlights or a lot going down in here, or you're going to see that in the game, or you might have dark pockets. And so we're going to grab these guys and actually just adjust these a little bit. What I'm doing here is I'm pushing the top up, and I don't really want that happening on the rest, so I'm pump it back out. And on the bottom of the frond, which you can barely see right now, I'm puffing that back in. You can use puppy for this on the leaf cards, is very effective. One thing that you want to be on for these, forgot to add that. So you can see that I'm making some dark pockets in here. You do want to make sure that you've got window properties, lighting, wrong spot. You want to do flip backside normals off. You can do this in V8 from a different menu. It's in preferences in V8. We just stuck it there for V9. And this will get you a better feel for what's going on. So I kind of did it a little too extremely. I'm going to go back to my lighting now that I've got an accurate thing in there. And just kind of play around with those guys. I want to see... Let's max that out. I'm going to see what we can get from the puffiness instead. There we go. I think I like that better. We are staring at the back right there. Which is why it looks so dark. I'm going to see how extreme we can go with that. I'm going to try to go with the local orientation and see if that helped a little bit. And now I've got some light on the top there. You can see that the backlight, the back dark spot disappears when you do that. Taking that little extra step to make sure your lighting is all par. Helps these guys mix and helps you not get those dark pockety shadows. I'll just take a look real fast. Here's where I stacked it inside of Unreal real fast, and Guilherme Rebello actually made this scene for us. I hope I said his name right because I've never actually said it out loud. But he's a grass wizard, and he does all kinds of architectural visualization stuff. He set up this light in here for these juicy grass things, but what I want to show with this is that when it's all mixed in, this is very, very, very dense. There's no real trees going on in the scene. It works on doesn't super repeat. And this would be a test you would do just to make sure you've got your cluster right. You should be able to mix one cluster in there and really just not be able to see the pattern when you're scattering these guys. You can definitely see a definite, the same blade repeating, but it does do the job. This is that bigger cluster. So this is the bigger cluster with, I closed it down, I guess. This one. The bottom mixed in here. I think I showed you this one in the beginning there. That one cluster there with the bottom that helps hide. So, definitely monkey head. And yeah, monkey head's hitting on something definitely, depending on the side of your scene or how much you need to fit in there. Depending on how you're layering these, depends on how big your cluster is. When we sell packages on the store, we actually do a very small cluster and then a big cluster like this. The bigger your cluster, the more repeat you're gonna see. So if you can handle it in the scene and you don't have a lot of trees, you can use a tinier cluster, and that will make sure that your mixture is all mixed up and turned different directions. But some combination of 2 clusters, that like a big one with a couple pieces put together and then a small one. If you're going to do a rough grass, you're going to obviously need a couple different variations, but you're going to need a very low and then a very tall. Mixing grass is like an art that people have developed hours and hours and hours to, and especially depending on how your scene lights affects how you're going to put your cluster together. So I would say look at the pros. We've got a couple different artists that we would definitely recommend, just like studying their work and seeing all the cool things that they do. We can link those, or maybe even do a blog post about that. I don't know if we have that in the books. I pre-recorded that, so I actually don't know. I had a density, I think, of about 500 on that in that little tiny space, but I don't know exactly how many I had that in that scene. I probably should have done some sort of performance test on that. But real fast, we're gonna wrap up the stream. So if you have any questions, I know you guys have a couple coming in. Before you export out your grass, I showed you some stuff with the export. You do, if you are sending it to Unreal, you want to set the light map for these guys. You probably want it to be kind of low, because these are just our grass clusters. So this one's pretty big. You would want to set that before you send it out. So I am in our light map setting properties, and I'm going to just put this on 32 or 16. I just make a very, very small light map. And we want to fill it with space. And so on our blue guy here, we want these all to be green. So we're going to just see if we can adjust this a little bit by adjusting the weight on this. Both of them are on 0 right now, and that's typically because our leaves are set on 0 when we have a trunk in the scene. Let's just see what happens if we put them both on white 1. Set that really fast, and that's looking a little bit more. We've got good spacing in there. We could maybe put those up a little higher, and I've got filled out the whole corner there. A little red there, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and say that that's done. You would also want to set your wind on the grass if you're gonna have that. A lot of scenes don't have the grass moving, but if you have a tall grass, you would want to send that. We're gonna skip that for today's stream, and there we go. And just making sure I leave the stream up for just a second so that you guys can get anything out that you're gonna ask the. And next week we are going to be doing, oh sorry, not next week, we're gonna take a break next week, and on the 11th we're going to be doing a simple palm, just Palm 101 if you're a new beginner. We will make the VFX version of it first, and if we have time in the stream, we will make a cluster and just quickly drop it down to a games. So that's on the schedule. And I am going to just leave the chat running for a second, but thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.
So you could do you.